I am Libby Hoy. I'm the founder and CEO of PFCC Partners, and share in the enthusiasm and the plea for grace and patience with anything we may have missed. It's been a hot minute since we planned a conference, for sure. So, but we're ready to get started. You guys ready to get started? All right, well, I want to start with figuring out who's in the room. All these beautiful faces. Who's in the room? So just give me a shout out if you are here representing patients and families as partners. Anybody out here? Yeah. This isn't the conference with one or two. This is the conference with a lot of us. Awesome. All right, how about clinicians? Do we have clinicians in the room? Anyone with a clinical background? Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Bigger round of applause for these clinicians over the last few years. All right, awesome. How about health system administrators or health system leaders? Any leadership in the room? We've got a lot of leaders in the room. Fantastic. Thank you, thank you. You know, leadership was not an easy job either over the last 3 years, and there was a lot of movement, so lots of people in new roles. I applaud you all. And how about my quality improvement friends? Any quality improvement specialists? Yeah, we've got a nice diverse crowd. Fantastic. Quality improvement specialists, they're driving patient safety. They're driving improving healthcare for all of us. That's pretty amazing. That's a pretty diverse crowd. Did anyone feel unrepresented that wants to raise their hand? For a different group? Okay, looks like we've got everyone. Fantastic. The next thing I'm going to ask you to do is put that role aside. Put it aside. Because guess what? We're all humans. And we're all humans in the healthcare system. And over the last 3 years, there's not one human on the face of this earth that didn't suffer. That was our common human experience. And yet we ended up a little bit divided in a lot of ways. What I want to come back to is what brings us together. What makes us human together? Let's drop our titles, let's drop our roles, and let's really show up for each other. So to start that, you'll see some colored papers on your table and some pens. Take those sticky notes and think about 3 milestones that you've experienced over the last year. It could be personal, could be professional, 3 kind of big moments over the last 3 years. Write those down and then stick them back on the sticky and begin to share with your table mates what those were. All right? I heard a big all right over here in the corner. Thank you. Take a few minutes. Reconnect as humans. This conference is a little bit different. You've already seen that in the fact that we have a lot of patient-family partners here, people with lived experience like myself, who are using that experience to help improve the healthcare system. Got lots of those good folks in the room. The other thing that's different is we are not a showcase conference. We are not, here's what we did, we're so great, we're so cool. I mean, I think we are pretty cool. At least we have a lot of fun. But we get some serious work done, and we do that by sharing our challenges. We included a challenge cafe today, and that's a chance for us to think together about some really difficult problems that we are all facing in whatever capacity we're coming to. So the purpose of that activity was to get you back in touch with your humanity over the last 3 years and to be able to reconnect with each other and really recognize that there is far more that we have in common than there is that puts us apart, right? We all need compassion in the healthcare system, whether you're the ED nurse or physician, whether you're the bedside caregiver, whether you're the patient, the family, the health system leaders, or even the quality improvement specialists who are trying so hard to move patient safety forward in an environment where it's just really tough. Everybody needs a little compassion. Everybody needs a little kindness in our system. And so what I want you all to think about today is how can you be an ignition for that change, to bring humanity back, to reconnect with others. I challenge you to have a conversation, at least one today, with someone you've never met, who looks nothing like you and probably has a very different lived experience. And make that human connection so that together we can continue to ignite bringing humanity back into healthcare. Who's with me? Woo! All right. because to me, they are just these exemplar partners for PFCC Partners. So Miguel Renteria is with LA County DHS, and Kim Werkmeister is with Cynosure Health. And with both organizations, we are so privileged to be in partnership with these guys that really, really engage the patient-family perspective, are eager learners. So together, I think we've learned so much about how partnership with patients and families can really be a high-value strategy for improving outcomes for our healthcare, for our communities. So maybe we'll do the poll at the end. You keep going, we'll get going. So they're colleagues, but they're also just good friends and people that I really rely on a whole lot. So if I could just ask you to properly introduce yourself, Kim.
Sure. Hi, I'm, I don't know if this will be or not, but Mike. Okay, here, wait. How's that? There we go. I'm Kim Werkmeister. I am a nurse by background, but have not been a real nurse for about 20 years, so I don't do any of that anymore. I am the Senior Vice President for Improvement and Implementation at Cynosure Health. We're an organization that works mostly with hospital organizations, although we have branched out into other areas across the healthcare continuum. Our goal is to improve healthcare further and faster by learning from one another, by working collaboratively with everyone across the continuum in healthcare, which is why I have the supreme honor of getting to work with Libby all the time. There are so many folks in here that today I get to meet for the first time in person, that over the last 3 years of a project that we've been working on together, I've only seen on Zoom, and that has my heart is singing being able to be here today.
Thank you, Kim.
Sure.
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name is Mike Renteria. I'm an improvement advisor for the Los Angeles County Department of Health Services. What that looks like here in LA County is 4 hospitals and about 25 plus health centers that range from our high desert community all the way to our Long Beach coastal community. And the work that we do here is, sometimes others view us as a safety net, but we don't view ourselves as a safety net. We view ourselves as really trying to provide extraordinary care for our patients and really kind of seeing what we can do to kind of support and strengthen their voice and help us do our work. So happy to be here with them.
Thank you so much, Mike. All right, so we asked everyone else to kind of share 3 milestones over the last few years because it has been a little bit bumpy. We've been together for the last 3 years, so we've endured a couple bumps together. But Kim, what comes to mind for you?
Well, the first one that came to mind to me came out with this matches with the piece that I talked about only seeing folks on Zoom until recently. That time on Zoom has still been very, very meaningful, and for me, the most meaningful milestone was the fact that I got to participate in, we use the word co-design all the time. I got to participate in real co-design, I believe, with several of the patient-family partners, some in the room and some that aren't here today too, for a large collaborative learning series that we're doing with a bunch of hospitals, about 300 hospitals across the country. And rather than say, oh, let's add in the patient-family engagement pieces, add in the patient voice, maybe the last session or the last 15 minutes, this was from the get-go. We have been together. We have been together of creating it and then making changes and then continuing to create and learn from failure and then coming back again. And it has been incredible what we've been able to do. And I think that we're going to see a lot of actual improvement in the care transition process, the process of moving across the care. Any others? So I also, Libby is my Peloton friend, and I was one of those folks who caved during the pandemic, but I was able to hit 365 days straight of some type of physical activity.
I'm about 50% of that Peloton friend.
Some of those days were a stretching class, let's be real clear.
You're moving. Mike, how about you? What kind of jumps out at you over the last 3 years?
Great question, Libby. I think the first thing that pops up is really really the start of our Patient Family Partnership Hub. You know, when we started this, it was during the start of COVID, and we had questions, or we wanted to ask our patient family advisory community what questions they had around COVID. And we started that focused conversation. They had a list of questions. We shared that with our clinical care teams, and they provided responses. We then published that through our communications channel, through our website, and also providing documents to our patient family advisors. And then from the start of conversation shifted over to the vaccine confidence conversation, and that kind of came about. And having focused conversations around that. And, you know, huddle with Libby and say, you know what, we're getting a lot of great insight with this. Can we continue not just having these one-off focused conversations, but having, you know, these topics kind of branch out every month and see what we could do. So in December of 2020, we started our Patient Family Partnership Hub, and we just celebrated 2 years. 2 years of our hub. Wow, yeah, 2 years of hub conversations. Another milestone that we also are really happy about and still trying to figure it out is our shift to bilingual conversations within our hub. So we invited our Spanish-speaking patient family advisors who are here today. Actually, they're with an interpreter. But really kind of seeing how we could continue that work and scale it. You know, not only with the hub, but with each of the patient family advisory councils. And, you know, great work again to our colleague Leslie Martinez, who started, when they started this work in 2020, they started right off the bat with Spanish speaking or bilingual services. And we kind of just learned from them on how they did it and really kind of want to scale it up throughout. Another milestone that we're really kind of looking forward to is securing stipends for our patient family advisors, and then really kind of having that as a sustainability piece for the work that we're doing here. I think we recognize that volunteerism is an opportunity that not everyone can afford. Sometimes that kind of goes down the road without the patient family advisor, but we're really thinking about how we could really invite a more diverse group of individuals that could give us all that insight, again, to help us shape the work that we do. So those are some of the milestones.
So for me, I had a few milestones. One was that PFCC Partners, for those of you who don't know, supports the PFA network, so Patient Family Advisory Network, about 820 folks across the country who, like myself, are using our lived experience to improve healthcare. And so immediately when COVID hit, so much fear in those early days, I remember. And so we had a lot of folks that were in rural communities across the country and just really concerned about anyone feeling isolated on their own. And so we stood up weekly coffee chats every Friday. And we just opened the Zoom and anyone could join the Zoom and we would just have conversation. And it was such an extraordinary, looking back on that, it was like something we did just to make sure that people weren't on their own too much. But looking back, the insights that we gained through that and listening and hearing from people about how they struggled to maintain their chronic condition during COVID, how they struggled with illness and loss and fear, a lot of anxiety. People also struggled even to get connected because they were in communities that didn't have Wi-Fi and things. And so just really listening, and the value of listening, I really learned how important that was, just because we all need that, right? We all need to feel like we're seen and that we're heard in whatever role we're in healthcare. And so that was an opportunity for us to kind of learn from our community. And I did have an opportunity in the middle of COVID to travel to a little community outside Dallas, Texas called Stop 6. And I was going there to talk with a Black and African American community about vaccine distribution and vaccine confidence. And what I learned, again, just listening, what I learned was people were really supporting each other in their communities, and partnerships were happening in very unusual and uncommon places. In fact, we met at a Tibetan commune, and so, a Buddhist, I should say. And so we met in this, and all the monks came, and they all had never spoken to the local high school before. And the local high school was hurting because that community really provided food for those students and provided structure for those students. And they couldn't go if they didn't have masks. So the monks heard this and they said, oh, well, we can make masks. And they produced masks for all of the students so that they could be in school, so that they could get their meals and continue with their structure. And before COVID, those two groups had never spoken to each other, even though they coexist in the same small community. So really starting to hear these amazing stories of community partnership was one of actually the highlights, if I could say that. The other milestone for me was, interestingly, we were funded by the National Academy of Medicine for a Catalyst Award to study, ironically, ICU communication. And we were awarded that in October of 19, and so went headlong into COVID with that in mind. Clearly our project plan went right out the window, but National Academy of Medicine was very understanding. But what was really interesting about that was my two partners were two ICU clinicians who were active in the ICUs. And we met every 2 weeks to continue to try to do something with our project. And to watch how they went through COVID was eye-opening. To see how strained they were, to hear their colleagues' stories, and understand that those colleagues who may have thought family at the bedside was difficult at times, now realized how much they relied on those family members to give critical information. The anxiety and the fear from families that these clinicians were dealing with. And so to walk through 3 years of every other week, and some weeks would be, man, I just wanted to jump through the phone and the screen and hug them because they were so exhausted. And other weeks they started to feel like things were going okay, and then another surge would hit. And so, again, the power of listening and hearing and learning the reality of what people were experiencing. And I have to say, I had to just turn off the news because I was talking to so many humans every week that were experiencing this together, and it was not reflected in what I was hearing on the news. And so, again, just re-engaging with that. And then finally, the other large milestone was the social injustice in response to the killing of George Floyd. I, like so many other CEOs, wrote a letter of support, letter of commitment. And I got from one of our board members almost immediately, Libby, you sound tone deaf. You haven't listened yet. She was absolutely right. So we went to our community, and specifically the Black and African American community within our network, and I asked, will you help us? And a lot said, no, it's not my job. And I get that, totally respect that response. Others said, no, you're just doing this as a token mechanism. And I get that too, because it turns out everything's a token until you sustain it. But we had 10 really brave folks who said, yes, we'll help you, we'll come along. And we've now been meeting with that group for 3 years. And we've got Deneen here, we've got some other folks that are leaders of that effort for us. And we've learned more about inclusion. Inclusion was always one of our core values, but it turned out we weren't doing it very well, right? I probably said to many of you in the room, recruit for diversity to your patient family advisory council. Your council should reflect your community, your patient population. And then I walked away and said, good luck, right? Now we're doing more things. We're doing things like hubs. We're opening more doors. We're rethinking how do we manage Spanish speaking and other language speaking? How are we going to do this? It's not enough just to say, well, I don't know, and leave it aside. We got to dive in. We got to do that work. So those were kind of the big milestones, I think, that were really important to my journey over the last 3 years. So as we think about what's brought us all here today, to accelerate humanity in healthcare, you are two of the most invested healthcare professionals I know, with your heart, with your soul, and with your vast knowledge and expertise. What in your roles are you thinking about as you're really wanting to accelerate humanity? Kim?
Well, I think it's not an accident that the theme for this conference also happens to be some of the same wording that I've been thinking about for this next year. One thing that the response to the pandemic really taught me too is that we make decisions so quickly, especially from a clinician standpoint. I think we make decisions that we believe are in the best interest of the folks that we're serving, but it's a real paternalistic viewpoint. And we make these decisions without talking to the folks who are going to be most affected. And what I have seen happen in the last 3 years is that humanity has gone out the window. Humanity's gone out the window for the patients and families that we serve. Humanity's gone out the window for the workforce, providing care. Humanity's gone out the window for the way that we measure success or improvement. Humanity's gone out the window for how we even design our processes, the things that we do every day. We don't think about the humans that are interacting in that environment. And so one of the things that I am committed to doing over this next year and beyond is this great opportunity that we have with a whole bunch of hospitals across the country, and then soon with beyond just the hospital setting, is to start bringing folks together first to listen, to say, okay, tell me about the effect on your specific humanity as a patient or family member, as someone in the workforce. Libby and I participated in an event last week, called it a roundtable, that was focused on resilience. And I think that's one of the areas where we keep hearing that word resilience. You just need to be more resilient. The system needs to be more resilient. The people within it need to be more resilient. But a phrase was lifted that I learned later. He made it up on the spot there, but it has stuck with me and it's going to stick with me the whole time. Abusive resilience. And what the speaker meant by that was, we have to stop just trying to insert what we think needs to happen, and because we're doing more harm that way to the humans that are involved in it. And so I am really want to start to focus on getting folks together to find out how can we never ever make a decision to close the boundaries on who's essential, especially at the bedside when folks are there. There is no doubt about it that family members are essential at the bedside. We cannot do this without family members. And so we need to listen to that. We need to listen to our workforce that now, last week, another statistics that I heard and understand completely, every single emergency department nurse in every single emergency department in the country has experienced violence many times over. They have a 100% chance of having some sort of violence enacted against them, verbal, physical, whatnot. So what else can we do? How can we change some things? And that gets to that human factors piece of the systems, the environment, and the process. What other changes can we make there too, to make it so that folks don't get to the point where they feel like this is a powder keg environment that we've created? How can we make it more humanizing? And then how can we get to measuring what actually matters to those who are experiencing the healthcare system on either, across the continuum, and from the patient family side or from the clinician side too. We measure so many things that are meaningless. How can we learn from folks what actually matters to measure? And then rather than claiming something was a success because we met some metric that doesn't matter to anyone, is not success. That's really what my focus is for sure.
Thank you so much, Kim. You said so many important things in there, and really acknowledging our workforce, acknowledging, again, all the humans who are in the healthcare environment, and how those systems so often get set up just kind of Legoed on top of each other without a lot of thought and continuity. And so bringing back opportunities to listen and to redesign based on the end users, as we're often called. But it reminds me of the quality director at Mammoth Hospital in the Sierras here in California. And I was in a meeting with him one time and I said, we want to get the patient and family's perspective into quality improvement. And he said, I don't move any initiative in this hospital unless I have the frontline nurses, the frontline doctors, and the frontline patients and family caregivers testing it before it gets implemented. And I thought, wow, those are the end users of the health system, right? We all are, yeah. Thank you. Mike, how about you? What are you gonna do to accelerate? This is one busy guy. He's doing so much all over LA County. And for any of you who are just visiting LA County for the first time, you figured out how big it is.
You know, in preparing for this conference, I started really looking at, what is humanity? You know, how do we define that? You know, started doing some research, and I kind of came up with a few things. You know, it's human love, right? That compassion towards others, kind of grounding yourself in that. Kind of even, you know, it's the well-being of others. And I think all of us in healthcare really embody that. We really embody that in our spirit to serve. You know, we are here to serve others. You know, and thinking about that, you know, we don't, in the LA County Department of Health Services, we don't do this alone. We lean on our teams to support that, and kind of through that lens, I think the way I'm gonna support it is kind of meeting people where they're at. You know, we have about 13, 14 different patient family engagement champions that are at various levels in their patient family advisory council journey. And I'm going to continue to meet them where they're at and support them in however which way we can. Kind of continue this work and kind of sustain it, because I make reference a lot of the times that, you know, we started this and it's going to continue. This is the way we do business now.
You have really embraced that shift of, you know, here's a patient family advisory council and we'll consult them on this, into, no, this is the way we do everything. You've got that vision and you're moving that forward, and the concept of meeting people where they are, you know, that turned into quite the catchphrase for a while there, but you do that in so many different ways. You do that through offering translation. You do that through traveling to all of the sites, which I think is so important. Are there any other activities that come to mind for you when you say meet people where they are?
Yeah, I think that could probably mean different things for different folks, right? You know, even within our own health system, you know, it's not, we're doing well, and I think we're going to showcase that a little bit later with Leslie Martinez and the work that they've done at LAC, USC. But in some cases, you know, there's still a feedback that we haven't yet met since this work started. So it's a different person. I think there's a new person here, I haven't seen him, we haven't met him yet, but he's here kind of learning to see what this is for that community. Hopefully continue to support him to do whatever we can to kind of get that going and kind of catch up with the rest of us. So, you know, but that's what sustainment looks like. That's what challenges look like, and this is what we're trying to do.
That's fantastic, yeah. And you know, you've got your community in LA County, but this is a bigger community as well. That's all here together to continue to move this work forward. So for myself, as I was thinking about what are we doing at PFCC Partners to really accelerate humanity in healthcare, I think one of the first things we do as I look at all my team members is we're keeping it real. And if we're having a hard time, we're having a hard day. If we are needing levity and lightness, we're gonna laugh and make stupid jokes. If we're not sure about how to run a Mente pool on a new computer, we're gonna try it anyway. And so accelerating humanity in healthcare for us is continuing to open space, continuing to make it okay for people who are not confident about using their lived experience, and opening that space, welcoming people in, really getting to what inclusion means. We are not there. We have so much to learn, and we have to learn from all of you and with all of you, so that every one of you in this room has something to contribute to this community and to accelerating humanity. And so I just invite you into this, and think about what that really means with you. And then with that, I'll ask Lindsay to go ahead and run our poll, please. Thank you. So we've got a few minutes left, and I'm gonna open it up to questions in just a second, but I wanted to ask, I'm coming out of left field with this one, but I think you guys are both very capable of coming up with an answer. I was thinking as I was driving here this morning, about what makes our partnership unique. You guys both partner in large projects with a patient and family driven organization to implement engagement. And I know what I think of and why our partnerships are so strong. And we've had some others that maybe weren't quite as strong. So when you think about, for all of the folks that are getting started with partnering with patients and families, or maybe down the line but want to strengthen it, what makes our partnership unique with Cynosure?
I would say the freedom to fail. We are, because it's certainly, it hasn't always been smooth, not for lack of trying, right? But we have embraced that. And that we haven't just said, oh, okay, well that one session didn't really land the way we thought it would. We just said, well, how are we gonna do it different next time? So we don't just say, oh, we're done. And I think we've been able to, at this point, kind of really grab on to the moment in healthcare that is really finally, I feel like folks have come along and understand. And if there's one good thing that maybe has come from the pandemic, it's this idea now, that this knowledge that we cannot do this without families at the bedside. We cannot, or caregivers, other folks who want to be there with their family members. We just can't. So I think people are a lot more open to it than they were in the past. But I think we also both have the ability to have a little bit of leverage with our teams to say, to not give in when folks say, oh, this is uncomfortable.
Right.
Oh, this isn't what I thought this would be. It's okay. That's the way it's supposed to be.
Absolutely. Uncomfortable. That's where you're growing and learning, right? Thanks, Kim. Mike, how about you? What makes our
Thank you.
partnership unique?
Kim, I think you kind of hit it right on, right? We're really unafraid to fail. I think we've gotten comfortable being uncomfortable, right? In terms of stretching our abilities and recognizing that when we didn't do it right, okay, well, that's just one way, we won't do it that way again. And let's figure out what is working and we'll continue to do the innovate. But I think in that spirit of unwillingness to fail or unafraid, innovation becomes, habit forming in our conversations with you, Lindsay and Laura and Tina and the whole PFCC team. I think innovation begins to branch out. Well, how can you do that better? How can you redesign this? I think that is just a testament of the great work that you're doing across the country, and it's a testament here, and we're just lucky to have you here in LA County to have those conversations.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, I think you guys are right. This common theme of being willing to fail and fail forward, and in my next career, I want to start Failure University. So it just is such a freedom. So where do we get that freedom to fail when we're working together? I think about that a lot, and I think about how much I trust you guys, and how much there is this underlying, we're going to move forward, and it's unencumbered because we can try whatever, because there's no fear of retribution. There's no fear of blame. And then I think about, well, what does it mean to be in a trusting relationship or partnerships? And for me, it means, number one, being consistent. You guys consistently, no matter what harebrained idea we come up with, consistently embrace the idea and think it through. We don't try every single one because there's been a couple. But we have this underlying consistent response, which is, if it's best for patients and families, and if it will improve healthcare outcomes and improve the environment for our workforce, let's try it. Let's move it forward. So I appreciate you guys just taking that one on the fly. I was just thinking about it as I was driving up this morning. Sorry. And they're also really good when I put them on the spot. All right. Does anybody have any questions for this panel or comment? Oh, we'll go here and then.
Sure, and I want to kind of ask you, when you're talking about this space of partnerships and embracing the sense of failure. One, success is a measure that we have for our own selves. So it may not be a failure, right? What we may perceive as failure may be success in another way in learning. But how do you share that, and how have you created a space for that amongst partners? Because each agency is so different, and they may be measuring success and failure in different ways. And so finding your people and finding that space in your partnership, how do you embrace that sense of failure?
Yeah, sure. No, thank you. Great question. Each month we have a patient family engaged care think tank. Each month we invite our patient family engagement champions from across the system, as well as maybe about a year and a half ago, we started inviting our patient family advisors. And in this, it's a 45-minute session that we do monthly, and we take on different questions and we share out, the successes as well as what could have gone better, with our community, and really kind of engage their thoughts around what we're doing and how we're doing it. Really, and taking what we learn and putting it into action, right? I think ultimately, and really kind of building up block by block, this community that we have. But, with that, the how for us is these think tanks, monthly think tanks, and how we approach it.
Those are great too. I would also say, I think it comes from a big dose of humility too. Humility, and also just continuing to model for me personally, what I want to see in those who work with me and in those who I'm partnered with then too. So just practically speaking, that could be a conversation with, say, another clinician that's on my team and said, oh, I don't think that went well. I'm not sure that this is the right way for us to, partner together. And I've learned now, rather than just saying, okay, yeah, we won't do that again. I said, what came from being uncomfortable? Tell me about that. And what are we trying, and so trying to ask those questions back again feels like that has built up some of the I don't want to call it courage, because that sounds really strange, but it does take some courage from the clinician side to be really open and transparent and say, gosh, we don't really know what we're doing, we need your help. And then to listen and say, oh, that's what you want us to do? And respond. So I think that's that humility.
Yeah. I'm just gonna yell really loud. I think you're absolutely right. I think humility is it, how you model acceptance of people who maybe aren't where you are with your understanding of patient-family engagement. Thank you. I think modeling that acceptance and not judging people for the knowledge they might not have, not judging new patient-family advisors who may come in with a lot of strong opinions that, as we say, we need to round the edges sometimes, so not be so judgmental. So whatever that might be, being humble, I think, is a really good one. So.
Thanks. Hi, Anna from LA County DHS. So when I think about humanity in healthcare, I think about some of the populations that are harder to reach, that Mike knows well that we try to reach, are people who are population of folks experiencing homelessness, coming out of jails, in jails, who are undocumented. So I'd love to hear from any of the three of you a little bit about how the work we do here in this room that you all are doing can extend to some of these populations that are not the ones with the loud voices necessarily showing up at hospitals and clinics.
Wow. Yeah. I'm gonna jump in because I'm so excited about that, Anna, and I'm so glad that you're here. I think that as we continue to build structures and build really inclusive structures, being mindful and getting representation from those communities that are underrepresented, and how do we do that? I don't have all the answers, but a lot of it is going into community and creating partnerships with trusted people in the communities, and not thinking that we can walk in and solve any problems or or be, the solution, but really go in with humility and learn first. And so, again, I think we're thinking about patient-family partnerships in more of a traditional sense. It's really the health system, the patient and family caregiver, and the clinician, those three gears that we have. But I think what we're learning is we're really going to have to think differently about the role of community. And we're going to have to do things really differently to create those community partnerships. So it's a great question and a great way forward for us to bring humanity back.
I think we have to
If
find.
I can share on that, Mike has really been our champion at LACUSC. So we were trying, when our CEO said, we want you to build a patient family advisory council that represents our community. As an ER nurse, I was like, oh my gosh, what does that look like? But really after working through it with Mike and really thinking through, well, we can't say that they have to be live scanned then, because then we can't have any patients that are undocumented. We can't take a chance of saying, well, these are only monolingual type of committees, because then you knock out 65% of our population. So going to Mike and saying, hey, as the Department of Health Services, how can we together get through this? And so coming up with the supportive interpreter series, support for that, having things like lifting live scans, so no longer does that have to happen. Those are a few of the ways that we've gotten through the barriers to make sure that we can get more of our represented populations in.
And the hub was another opportunity for us. I don't know, just to open more doors and give more opportunity.
Yes, no, thank you. I think ultimately, when we think about that, it's really how do we build trust and relationships. People ask us, what do you do? I try to build relationships through trust, and that doesn't take a week, doesn't take 2 weeks. It takes months sometimes with some folks. And it's just continue to try to build out those bridges to see what those look like. And a great question, I don't have an answer, but I can definitely share that we are actively, exploring and seeing what we can do. And we really hope that, through trust building, that folks will see that their voice is really strengthens our work and putting it into action. And through that, hopefully we get, word of mouth. You know what? They're doing some good work over here. Maybe you can come and talk to them and share your thoughts and insights.
Thank you. I think we've got time for one more. I don't know.
We have Connie.
No.
It's
Very
Connie's
rock, paper,
first.
scissors.
I'm passing the
After
mic.
pouring into your communities and those you serve, how do you recharge and refuel to continue the work so that you can sustain the partnerships with the stakeholders you develop?
Lovely question.
Great questions. I'll be honest, it's energizing. I can't work a microphone. This is the most energized I've felt in healthcare in 30 years as a nurse. So for me, this is part of recharging, is getting to get to what's really important and talk to the folks who are really important and partner with them. I came from a time period 30 years ago as a hospital level quality director, when in those days we were told if an error occurs, we have to stop everything, take the medical record, no one talks about it anymore, it goes to risk management. And I remember getting a call from a payer, Blue Cross Blue Shield, I don't remember, said they were trying out a brand new program, and it was for patient complaints, and they wanted to know if we would be willing to test this out with them, where the patient and the representative from the payer would come and talk to us. And I remember thinking, oh, that sounds horrible, and I was terrified by that. And our corporate risk management wouldn't even allow it. And now I think back and I think, oh my gosh, what did I miss from that? So now I feel like I'm getting this second chance, all these years to this. It was very energizing to me. So.
Yeah, no, thank you. I really feel around the spirit to serve brings meaning to the work. Not only to meaning to the work, but meaning to one's life in some aspects, right? Really engaging the community and taking that spirit of serving others, I think just brings me energy every morning. And that's where pray for strength and then trying to build these bridges with the community. And it kind of just, it's a cycle from there. And it kind of just keeps turning.
So true. So see that in you every day you show up in a service mindset. I gotta be honest, because that's what I do. But, you know, I did a lot of listening over the last 3 years, and I recognized that my own limitations and where I had to recharge, and so I recharge on my own mostly. Most often in the wilderness and with my dog. But I think it's really an important question for all of us to think about, because the moment we stop managing and re-energizing is the moment we disconnect with our humanity, and we can't move it forward if we're not connected with our own. So, yes, Ms. Connie, I've been listening. Great question. All right, we have such an amazing packed day for all of you. I can't wait. Are you guys excited? All right.